Imagine this, you go to sleep tonight in a world that just works. A world where your body, our cities, the forests, everything is perfectly tuned to a very specific chemical chord. But what if that chord just snapped? What if it all changed, literally overnight?
So, right now, the air we're all breathing is a pretty familiar mix, right? It's mostly nitrogen with about 21% oxygen. And that 21%, it's not just some random number. It's the absolute foundation of our world, our biology, the way a simple candle burns, the very materials we use to build our civilization. It's all calibrated for precisely this amount.
And then, bam, you wake up one morning, no warning at all, and that number is different. It's not 21% anymore, it's 42. The sky looks the same, maybe a little bluer, but the air, it feels different, sharper. It's like we've woken up on an alien planet that just happens to use our old street maps.
So, what's the very first thing we feel? Well, that first breath in this new world. It's a huge paradox. It feels amazing, and it's also incredibly dangerous, all at the same time.
The first thing you notice is this incredible feeling of exhilaration, a kind of uncanny clarity, like your lungs just had their training weights taken off. But here's the catch. That boost is alone, and the bill comes due almost immediately. Inside your body, these unstable oxygen molecules called free radicals start going crazy, damaging your cells. This is oxygen toxicity. It used to be something only, deep sea divers had to worry about. Now, it's everybody's problem. And the long-term result is accelerated aging and just overwhelming stress on your body's defenses.
And this really gets to the heart of the problem. That initial high you feel, it's temporary. But the damage? That gets recorded permanently. Your body keeps a very strict account of everything. And in a 42% oxygen world, we'd be running a massive biological deficit from our very first breath.
Okay, so while our bodies are quietly waging this chemical war on the inside, the world outside is about to face a crisis that's much, much faster, and a whole lot hotter. You see, fire is the first thing that's going to truly recognize this new world. Combustion is a simple recipe, right? You need fuel, you need heat, and you need oxygen. Well, when you double the oxygen, everything changes. Things that were once just flammable are now basically explosive. The amount of heat you need to start a fire just plummets. And the results of this are absolutely terrifying. You know that small grease fire you might get on your stove? It now flashes to the ceiling in an instant. A damp forest that would normally just smolder and resist the flames, it now burns like it's been soaked in gasoline. Even a tiny spark of static electricity in a grain mill can trigger a devastating explosion. Our cities would burn hotter than our firefighting gear could ever handle, so hot that even concrete would start to fail.
But look, these individual fires are just the sparks. They quickly scale up, feeding into this vicious cycle that threatens to turn the entire planet into a tinderbox.
It all starts as a chemistry problem, but it spirals into a climate nightmare fast. First, you get more fires, burning bigger and hotter. Then, all that fire releases massive amounts of carbon that's been locked away for ages. Next, that CO2 spike drives up global temperatures. That, in turn, dries out more forests and soils, which, you guessed it, makes them even more likely to burn. It's a terrifying feedback loop, a planetary fire that literally feeds itself.
So, how do you feed everybody? Open fields are now a massive fire hazard. A combine harvester is basically a giant rolling spark machine in a field of kindling. The only way forward is to retreat. We'd have to move our high-value crops into sealed, climate-controlled greenhouses. Things like hydroponics and vertical farms wouldn't be a niche market anymore. They'd become an absolute necessity for survival.
Now, while humanity is struggling to just survive, another form of life is about to have its golden age. And to understand why, you got to understand how insects breathe. They have this thing called a tracheal system. It's like a network of tiny pipes that deliver oxygen right to their tissues. It works, but it's not very efficient over long distances, which has basically acted as a natural bottleneck, keeping them small, until now.
In our new 42% oxygen world, that bottleneck just gets blown wide open. The diffusion problem is solved. Now, evolution isn't going to create a dragon the size of an airplane overnight, but insects that breed quickly, they could start pushing the limits of their size almost immediately. The age of giant insects would begin.
So you're faced with a world that's constantly trying to burn down and is being inherited by giant insects. Humanity's only real option is to re-engineer civilization from the ground up. Survival itself becomes a design problem.
The whole game changes. You stop trying to fight fires and you start designing a world where they can't even begin. So your new favorite building materials are going to be things that just flat out refuse to burn. Ceramics, silicones, mineral wool.
We'd have to build cities within cities, these sealed atmospheric enclaves with lower, safer oxygen levels for critical places like hospitals and data centers. And every tool, every floor, every single process would be redesigned to prevent a single spark.
And look, this isn't just about massive construction projects and sci-fi tech. This change would weave its way into the very fabric of daily life. Our culture, our habits, our homes, everything would have to adapt to this new, combustible normal. So forget about backyard barbecues, universal ban. Fireworks? That's something you'd experience in augmented reality now. Public health advice would flip from get some fresh air to get filtered air. Kids would learn a new fire drill, stop, drop, and seal. And that cozy smell of a wood fire, once a symbol of comfort, yeah, now it's a panic signal. It means evacuate, now.
This change reaches right down into the most ordinary parts of our day, like making dinner. Gas stoves, with their open flames and pilot lights, they're gone. A relic, a museum piece. They have to be. Induction cooktops, which heat the pan without any flame at all, would become the standard, not because they're cool, but out of pure, absolute necessity.
And that really becomes the central mission for humanity, doesn't it? We wouldn't be conquering this new Earth, we'd be hiding from it, carefully engineering these little sealed pockets of the old Earth to protect ourselves from the dangerous, oxygen-rich present.
So what this whole thought experiment really shows us is something pretty profound. Everything about us, from the tiny enzymes in our cells to the myths we tell each other about fire, is all perfectly fitted to that 21% oxygen level. It's like a key in a lock, and it's a delicate balance we completely take for granted every single day.
Which leaves us with this one last kind of unsettling question. We tend to think of the air we breathe as a given, a birthright, something that's just there. But what if it's not? What if it's the single most critical piece of technology we have, something we must actively maintain to ensure our own survival? It's definitely something to think about with your next breath.